Okay, so here's a question probably a great deal of you may have thought out loud about. Is polarity part of this construct's design? Does polarity exist within the higher realms, that is, consciousness bands, what people would refer to as being dimensions, higher dimensions? Does polarity reside or exist within the design at those levels? The simple answer is yes, it does. It's part of the design from the first initiation of the creation, which is the first creation vibration, thought, intention. Part of the design is polarity. So another way to look at polarity is experiencing self differently. The analogy would be pertaining to us is coming into this reality field, being transcendent of the field, okay? Our creation, quote unquote, doesn't exist here because we never were created, okay? But we're resident outside of this field or fields, okay? We pre-exist and transcend the creation, okay? Coming into the creation is a way to experience self differently. That's a polarization of self, okay? In context to the design, which this is a living design, it's a consciousness field. Everything in it is conscious because of the design itself is conscious. The design itself has polarity built into it, which allows for, quote unquote, the free will expression. The simplest way to refer to it is a consciousness unit that holds the encryption for the design itself, okay? And within it is the polarization of the design, which is experiencing self differently through an inversion of itself or an equal opposite expression of itself. Magnetism, electrical is the equal opposite expression of magnetism. Vibration, oscillation is the equal opposite expression of vibration. You can go on in regard to the attributes that we see within the vibration itself, which holds the encryption, and as it inverts itself, it becomes an equal opposite expression. So because there is this taking place within the design, this would enable us to be able to experience self differently and therefore maybe not necessarily agree with one another all the time. And as you can see within the Lyran Wars, this takes place within higher dimensional consciousness. This takes place within the fourth harmonic universe. So when someone says unity consciousness is within 5D, what does that even mean? In regard to the consciousness design, unity consciousness is found within what is referred to as being the unici, which is the point of all union. And that is within the very first creation, vibration, thought, intention, which is referred to also as the partikai, that holds within it the design of polarity, or the equal opposite expression of oneself within it. That allows for, again, free will. Okay? So unity consciousness is not exclusive to any dimensional band of consciousness. It's found within all of the creation. Because polarity exists within the design itself, you've had disagreements to the point of war within higher bands of consciousness, okay? So, of course, unity consciousness is found in 5D. It's found in the whole entire creation, but it's not exclusive to 5D. It's like you go into 5D, everything's perfect. Yeah, there's a few people that believe that, but they have to throw the baby out with the bathwater, to use that expression, because they have to ignore the history in regard to these wars that have transpired. And has all that been cleared up? No, it has not. The condition based on the design still remains. There's still polarity. So that means there's still going to be disagreements. Now, I ran across a video on Facebook that was an interview of Randy Kramer. I'm sure a few of you know who he is. He's been appointed by the military to disclose certain information, quote unquote. Whether it's true or not doesn't really make any difference to me. But what I thought to be interesting was he was talking about this very thing. And that's what kind of sparked me to want to talk about this video and kind of revisit this a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and play that for you. You see, I'm going to get this going here. So I'm going to go ahead and push play and take a listen. And after it's 2 minutes long, we'll come back and we'll further the discussion. At least I'll talk more about it, put it that way. All right, here we go.
So why is it, we have our community here that has their awareness set that being fourth and fifth density beings, that you don't have this warlike consciousness about you. And here we are.
Okay, so I'm going to stop there just for a second because he's referring to fourth and fifth density beings. Now, this is something I recognized for a long time, and even when it had begun to be part of the jargon, I kind of engrafted that for a very short period of time until I realized what I was doing wasn't correct, and that is associating dimensions and densities as being the same thing. And so this is what he's referring to as fourth and fifth density. He's not talking about a density, he's talking about dimensions, and they're completely two different things, really. It needs to be defined as dimensions are found within densities. A dimension itself is not a density, and so they're not interchangeable terms. So I just wanted to bring that up. No particular reason other than what I just said. So, all right, here we go. Just want to clarify that. Here we go.
And, 3D, and we are having a war with these beings. There's a conflict of the belief system right there.
Yeah, I think the crux of that is an erroneous assumption that there's no conflict in 4D or in 5D or in any other of the densities above that, which is not true. That somehow that there's this magical line between 3D and 4D where below here is conflict and above here is just peace, harmony, order, and oneness. Not true. You have elevations of density and consciousness as you move up the ladder, but this is not a guarantee that someone in a fourth density state of consciousness is peaceful or unified. It is entirely possible for someone to evolve themselves from a 3D to a 4D state of consciousness and be the complete opposite of that, right? So conflict doesn't stop at 3D, and it doesn't just not go beyond 4D, because light and dark continue. Duality continues, like a certain kind of dualism continues, where you have opposing forces who don't always agree, who don't always like each other, and sometimes it comes down to how is one group going to decide that they're going to get to make the decision, and it results in a fight. It's not a guarantee that just because someone is at a higher density that somehow they've elevated themselves above war or conflict.
Would you say it gets easier, Randy, for civilizations and species to get along?
It tends to, yeah, it tends to. The majority, I think, of those civilizations as they evolve do become much more cooperative and do work together.
Okay, so I found that very interesting coming from that aspect, meaning from the military. And I mean, it's not like they would be naive of that, but understanding it on a higher dimensional level. Now, obviously what I'm talking about here when I'm referring to the fourth density, that's the harmonic universe number 4. These are dimensions 10, 11, and 12. Okay, so this is the bands of consciousness that is, I mean, that's a lot of energy being held within that particular identity. And this is where the conflict took place for the Lyran Wars. Okay, so I would like to visit that, revisit that. This is something I did, I don't know how long ago I did a video on that. I did which I called a Reader's Digest version of the Lyran Wars. So I'm going to go ahead and play that for you. I think it's interesting. So it's a lot easier for me just to kind of play what I had already done than try to kind of just rehash it here and now. So I'm going to go ahead and play that for you, and then we'll come back and I'll discuss a little bit more about this. But anyhow, all right, folks, here we go. The Lyran War. Let us begin with the Stargates. What is a Stargate? A Stargate fundamentally is a frequency modulator. It works very specifically in relationship to the tones of dimensions 12 through 1 of our harmonic universes. That is, harmonic universe 4, 3, 2, and 1, and all reality fields has a Stargate or modulation tone system. This is also referred to as being the Universal Templar. So the Lyran Elohim Wars began 250 billion years ago, and a system of Stargates was created that didn't belong in our system due to this war. Now, this begins with a faction of the Elohim's consciousness becoming abnormal due to the genetic distortions from, get this, inbreeding. Yeah, that's right. So the side effect of this genetic mutation was that they had become aggressive and they desired dominant rule over the universe. They desired a non-free will universe and to exercise their convictions, believing it was their right to do so. And the beginning for them was to rid themselves of those who did not agree or wouldn't cooperate with their agenda. This had begun the Lyran War. Now, the Lyran War takes place in the fourth harmonic universe, this being gates 10, 11, and 12, dimensions 10, 11, and 12. This is called the Cradle of Lyra. This also is the entry point for our matter systems, right? So for those who are incarnating into the system, this is the point of entry. Okay, so when the Lyran Wars began, the Elohim Council, now these are the ones being closest to the yanas. The yanas are part of the energy matrix or the primal sound fields. The Elohim was commissioned by the yanas as an advisory team to keep balance within the systems. The two other groups involved being the Seraphim and the Brahma races. Now, originally, these groups agreed to the Emerald Covenant, the Emerald Covenant being a peaceful agreement for coevolution. Okay, now the Seraphim races also had begun to war with other races. The Seraphim races are responsible for creating the avian life form, the reptilian life form, and the insectoid life form. Okay, so the Anu Elohim, that being part of the Elohim family, and due to all the conflict taking place, they decided to take action. The catalyst for them doing this seems to be that they had sought out the help of the Elohim Council, but the council rejected their request. It was more like a demand. They were demanding that the council kill the other beings. So, yeah, this is quite the drama. Anyhow, so the Anu Elohim planned on getting rid of the Elohim Council And then after that, they were going to go after the draconian races, then rid themselves of them, and then go on their universal conquest of sorts. Okay, so this takes us to Stargate 12. The Anu Elohim succeeded by destroying Stargate 12 Aramitena. Now, Stargate 12 Aramitena holds the 12 base DNA frequency blueprint, which is the full mathematical program for this system. Held within the scalar waveform are the 12-dimensional frequencies, so when Stargate 12 was destroyed, the scalar wave became fragmented. Think of a fabric being torn in the middle. So, due to the fragmentation, part of the scalar wave went into reverse spin, creating a black hole system. So, the code has been altered. Once a waveform, that is a scalar waveform, is breached or torn, it begins to reassemble itself in a chaotic fashion. So due to the fragmentation of the mathematical structure, that changing it from the base 12 natural order mathematics to that now of a base 10 reversed mathematics, it no longer holds the original regenerative mathematical pattern. So that which was once infinite is now finite. Hence begins the phantom matrix. Okay, so that was an interesting story time, right? Especially the manifest template that became corrupted because of the use of it over and over and over again. It could be referred to as inbreeding, okay? So that's the reason why I used the hillbilly alien depiction. I thought it was funny. So if you stop long enough there and you read through that, it'll give you a bit more of understanding of what that was about. So anyhow, I really just wanted to kind of focus more on the idea of unity consciousness, that it can be found anywhere because it's the aspect of the design is a duality, okay? Equal opposite expression, polarity, okay? This is an omnipolarity construct, right? So it's not duality in its entirety, of course not, all right? There is a neutrality, so that makes it a omnipolarity. And that's really an interesting aspect of the design. The more you get into the encryption of the particle, you see that it's quite interesting to observe that. Yeah, unity consciousness is found wherever you align yourself with the natural order. If you look to serve for the benefit of all life, there's unity, right? It's a simple conclusion, isn't it? Right? Yeah, because the natural order is all about the benefit for all life, right? When you create, co-create, that is, it's a co-creative universe, you're creating for the benefit of all life, So that entails quite a bit. There's a whole lot being said with that, right? A whole lot. Just as a footnote, and this is kind of like I'm sidetracking here a little bit, because at the end of this, I'm just going to go ahead and play a little clip from something that I did in regard to a questions and answers program that I began to do, and only did 2 episodes of it. But one of those episodes was about is 5D unity consciousness. So I'm just going to throw that in there at the end of this. It might be worthwhile watching. Okay, just saying. But I was going to talk a little bit about, because I thought it was funny, about the Miami Mall thing with the aliens that showed up. Now, I'm not saying it was funny in regard to how it was terrifying certain people that were there, apparently, from what I understand. I don't know, I wasn't there. But long story short, as I why I think it is funny is because some of the conclusions people have come, or theories that they came up with in regard to like the coordinates. You have Antarctica, and then you have the opposite side of that, you find the Miami Mall. So if you put in the coordinates and you reverse the coordinates, you get the opposite of that. In other words, if you plan on going to Antarctica and you reverse the coordinates, you end up in Miami. And so they were associating it with, quote unquote, these supposed aliens were putting in the wrong coordinates. I go, well, if they're using that technology, you really have nothing to worry about, because that's not how you navigate the universe. Trust me. So that was quite funny. But it could have been a hologram. It could have been a lot of things. I don't really care. I don't talk about a lot of these things purposely because there's no reason to. This is about, for me, it's about, if there's any answers given, there has to be a solution and an encouragement for the purpose, for the service, for the benefit of all life, and for your personal advancement spiritually. Otherwise, it's superfluous. I mean, I'm not interested in getting subscribers because, I'm chasing a bunch of drama. Yeah. So anyhow, here's the clip here at the end. Thanks, folks, for watching this. And for those who would like to participate in the workshops, become a member of Patreon and you'll know what's going on. You don't have to pay to become a paid member. I could really use the money. Trust me, I really could. I'm just barely skating by all the time. So I could really use that, but it's not necessary. Understand that. All right. Love you, folks. Blessings to you. I'll leave you with this last clip, and hopefully we'll see you in Patreon. All right. Bye.
What is fifth dimensional consciousness? It's part of what is called the triadic identity, known as the Dora, or soul matrix, of harmonic universe 2. That includes the astral mind, the archetypal mind, the angelic or celestial mind. So collectively, what we have here is called the superconscious mind. So the astral mind, dimension 4, the archetypal mind, dimension 5, the angelic mind or celestial mind, dimension 6. Looking at the archetypal mind, dimension 5, because we're focusing on what? So what is fifth dimensional consciousness? Because the question was, is the fifth dimension unity consciousness? Well, no, not unto itself. Unity consciousness can be found anywhere within the creation. More specifically, we're looking at the archetypal mind, which is what? It is a specific identity type. In this case, we're referring to soul identity and the united reality of soul self within the soul matrix of harmonic universe 2. Harmonic universe 1, where we reside here on Earth, is comprised of 3 dimensions, all right? So when we're here on Earth, we don't think about going to the second dimension or going to the first dimension. It's all part of the same experience or reality field. So looking at the archetypal mind, what we're looking at is, or the fifth dimension, we're looking at the consciousness in respect to the unifying of self within the reality of soul self. Make sense? Let us recap. So what is the central point of all union? Because that's what we're referring to here. And the eternal consciousness of the one all. Well, unity consciousness emanates from the point of origin of this source consciousness field. This being the smallest unit of energy substance, that is to say, electrotonal unit of consciousness called the particle. What is fifth dimensional consciousness? Well, it's part of what is called the triadic identity, known as the Dora, or soul matrix of harmonic universe 2, that includes the astral mind, the archetypal mind, and the angelic celestial mind.